We're gonna load up here. It's Monday morning. Truck is clean. We got rain coming finally on Thursday and Friday. We got a gnarly looking sky here. Look at that. Should be a good week. All right, back to business. Cue that music, yeah.
Boston Trucker here. Welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoy it.
Well, this is a surprise. It's not supposed to rain till Thursday. I've got a new Pacific Coast brush here, sent to me from Chuck and Jim Vassar, Greenfield, Massachusetts. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you thinking of me. Every day is a truck show. Look at that. Last week I made a video, came out Sunday morning. I try to put out a video every Sunday morning, if I can. I know a lot of my hardcore subscribers look forward to that, and I look forward to providing a video every week. It doesn't always happen, life gets in the way. So I put out a video last week. I was only up about 2 hours. I ended up taking it down. I don't think my sarcasm was coming through the video in the way of my tone. And people were getting their panties in a bunch, so I ended up taking it down. But if I offended anybody, believe me, it was just, I wasn't meant to offend anybody for sure. And you gotta know I'm a very sarcastic person, and I have a very dry sense of humor. So, you know, I was mentioning plastic trucks. So what's a plastic truck? First of all, I don't judge anybody who's making a living for what they drive for a truck. But believe me, there have been times where I was not driving trucks that were aesthetically pleasing. Okay? A lot of my career. So I'm not a, maybe I come off as a snob. I'm not a snob to people who drive a truck with a slope nose. I did it, have done it. I would do it again if I had to. If I had to. I'm in a position now where I don't have to, but you never know. If something happened to this job and some company was paying me the right kind of money, like for example, when I went to work for New Century 25 years ago, oh my God, I'm getting old. In the year 2000, I came out of a 379P, extended hood with a 63-inch flat top bunk. I went and drove a Volvo 770 with an automatic. First time I ever drove an automatic. Why? Because it was good money and benefits, a lot of work. And then I drove Freightliner Columbias for the next 8 years after that Volvo. So I don't judge people what they drive. And nowadays the hoods are getting more rare. They're rare. So the chances of being in a hood is very slim to none almost these days. So if anybody thought I was making fun of you because you drive, believe me, that is not the case. So other things I want, if you saw that video, this might sound like a repeater. I'm just going to repeat some of the things I was talking about that have been on my mind lately. Like, you know, I genuinely feel, no, I don't know, because I have never ran an ELD, right? But I get angry when I see Werner Enterprises, right? When I see a Werner truck, I think about the owner of Werner was the start of all the ELDs. I think they invented it or whatever, for whatever reason. I think it's because the drivers were having a lot of accidents. I could be wrong, but they had to come up with a plan. So they recorded the drivers logging, and then it snowballed from there. I just think about this time of year. It's winter time is coming, and you see all these videos, all these trucks piling up. These drivers pushing the envelope because their clock is telling them they gotta go. If they stop for safety, they lose time behind the wheel. And I'm sour on anybody telling anybody how and when they should be driving a truck. My dad always told me, don't let anybody else drive your truck. Not meaning physically driving, tell you how to drive. If you're not comfortable, pull over. And that's the way I've always lived my life. Like, don't tell me how to go, don't tell me to drive faster. I don't want to hear it. You do what's comfortable for you. And I just feel like those ELDs, and listen, like I said, I don't use them. So maybe I'm talking out of my butt. I just know what I see on the internet, on videos. They just seem, yeah, you can still make money on them, but they just force you to drive when you might not want to drive. Like me personally, I don't like driving all night. I never did. Back in the day, I struggled with it. I like to start my day when I drove over the road. Perfect day for me would be getting up about 4 a.m. Going to the truck stop. It's quiet. No line for a shower. Shower back then was, I think, $5, and then it went up to $7, and then I was off the road. $7 for a shower. Go in the truck stop. Sit down, have a nice breakfast at the counter. Maybe put a quarter in the jukebox, put some music. There were no cell phones. Get up, I'll leave the truck stop around 4:30. I don't mind driving in the dark after I just woke up, I'm fine. A couple hours, the sun comes up, I start waking up when the sun comes up. And run till 8, 9 o'clock at night. Sun's gone down, go to bed for 5, 6 hours, because I'm an adult and that's all I needed, not because my computer told me to. And then get up and do it again. And you could turn in 24 hours, you would turn in 850, 900 miles a day, easily. Not easily, I mean, it's work. Just staying behind the wheel and eating behind the wheel, you know, lunch and dinner sometimes. I don't know. It'd be nice to hear that the truck stops came back to open restaurants the way it was before the pandemic. People can sit down together. Maybe you're having a bad day. You talk to a stranger. Maybe they're going through the same thing. You never know. Maybe you run together. Maybe you become friends. Just sit. That's how it was when I drove over the road. Like I'm envisioning in my mind, like pulling into the Petro in Portage, Wisconsin. Park in the back row by the hill. Walk inside. You looked around. See, this is something I just thought of that I bet nobody does anymore. When you walked into a truck stop back in the day, you looked around not only for familiar faces, but company jackets. Oh, there's a guy with a Bud Meyer jacket. Oh, there's a guy with a Millis Transfer jacket. There's a guy with a, you know, whatever jacket, you know. Martin. Oh, there's a Martin driver. And that would start a conversation. Oh, you drive for Martin on Mondovi? Oh yeah, I drive for Bud Meyer, or yeah, whoever you drive for. And that was, the truck drivers, I don't think they wear the jackets. I still have my jackets. I never had any clothing from Land Transport. I got 2 Bud Meyer jackets and about 2 safety shirts and a couple company shirts. They still fit me. Basically the same size now. I got some new Century jackets. I got some clothing from R&L. Yeah, I got a new Century I got 2 new Century jackets. Yeah, I got some clothing from back in the day. But you'd look for a familiar face or a company jacket that you recognized. And those were your colors. And you were proud to wear it. I was proud to wear my Bud Meyer jackets. Proud. I still am. Just like to pull them out once in a while. But, you know, I got the old satin jackets. They were like baseball jackets. And then I got a black one with a built-in hoodie. That was my favorite one. But that's how it was. And you'd see somebody you know, and you go sit in a booth and kind of put your arm over the booth and your legs across the booth like you're in your living room, you know. It's good times. Met a lot of good people. Made a lot of friends that way back in the day. And then you carry a little phone book with you, and you have to write down their phone number. And then you call them when you get to their town. I don't remember how we kept track of each other, but somehow we always knew when somebody was going to be home, and you would go and pass them through. They come out to the truck stop and meet you, you know, with the wife and the kids. Good times. There was no DEF fuel back then. It was just diesel. You wake up 3 o'clock in the morning, go to the bathroom. You didn't go to the bathroom in the parking lot. You went inside and went to the bathroom. Yeah, some people were numbered 1 in the parking lot. Yeah, that still happened back then. But I don't think people were going number 1 in jugs back then and throwing them out the window. If they were, I never noticed it. But you get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, get that cold air, blow out that smoke, go in the truck stop, feel refreshed. Sometimes you go back to the truck to go to bed and you're like, you know what, I feel good now, I'm gonna drive. If you drive a couple hours, get further up ahead and go back to bed. You're an adult, you should be able to do that, right? Not go back to the truck and go, oh my God, now I'm wide awake and I gotta sit here because my clock says I gotta sit here. I used to listen to a lot of cassettes back in the day. They used to have these racks of cassettes, right? They used to have a cassette carrier, just cassettes. Country western mostly. Rock and roll, you know, Journey, Heart, Scorpions, Alabama, Shelver Teletapes, Farther Down the Road. Those are great. I mean, those go back to my dad's days. Cleaning his truck when I was a kid, in the cab over, put in the cassette. Hopefully it doesn't get stuck. Listen up. Listen to Willie Nelson, On the Road Again, over and over again. And then Alabama came out with Roll On, and we were all done. And we were like, roll on highway, roll on along, roll on daddy till you get back home. Roll on family, roll on crew, roll on mama like I asked you to do, and roll on 18-wheeler, roll on. Roll on! Man, good days. Country music, Bill Mack, the Bozo, Dave Nemo, Paul Harvey. Who was that guy at night? I used to listen to this guy at nighttime. Damn it, it's on the tip of my tongue. Nighttime show. Talked about aliens. Somebody tell me in the comment section. Great show. That would keep you up at night. If you were tired, you put on the alien show. Oh my God. I swear I've seen UFOs. I don't know if I ever told you this. When I 40, the other side of Flagstaff one night going west, and I saw some lights in the sky that you cannot explain how they moved the way they moved. They didn't just go side to side and up and down. They were like zigzagging, and I watched these things as I cut across the desert over to Williams and over to Kingman, and I could just see them for hours just flashing all over the place. I can't explain it. To this day, I'm not like a conspiracy nut, but I always wondered about that. I always wondered, what did I see that night? I can still see it in my head. Oh man. What else? What else? You know, back in those days we had Caterpillar engines, a lot of trucks. What happened to Caterpillar? They were making engines. Everybody wanted them, and then they stopped. I don't even know what happened there. And winter fronts. I'm repeating some of my last week's video, I know, for the few of you who saw it. But, winter fronts with your handle on it, with a truck logo on it, Kenworth, KW. Kenworth had the white winter fronts with the red KWs on them, or the bug shields with the CB handles on them. I want to get one. I keep thinking about getting one for this truck. Get a red one. Get it pinstriped with the Boston trucker on it across the front. But then I'm like, do I really want to be looking through a bug shield? Because I don't really like looking through them. And I know you kind of look over them, but you look through them too, so I don't think I'm ever going to do that. Another thing back in the day is, if you had to lay over, sometimes you had to lay over. Me, I mostly laid over as either the West Coast or East Coast. Mostly California. California was probably where I would lay over the most. Meaning layover, for those who don't know, there wasn't a load. There was no such thing as a 34-hour break. You either unloaded and reloaded, or deadheaded when empty to your pickup, or you went to the truck stop. And you just hung out, looking for those company jackets, looking for a familiar face, looking for a friend who's in the same boat as you, laying over. Headed to the truck stop. What do you want to do tonight? I don't know. You want to drop the trailer and go get a steak? We'll bobtail. We'll take your truck. Or, hey, you got a grill? Yeah, hey, let's go get some steaks. Go out in the back, grill, get some beer. Little back row barbecue. And just hang out all night. It's great. Good times. I don't know if they do that anymore. And another thing about trucks back in those days, I hate saying back in those days, I sound like I'm an old timer. I'm not an old timer. I gotta come up with content. So, trucks are built to last. No, there weren't codes like you either broke down or you didn't. But if you broke down, you really broke down. You weren't in some shop because you had a def code or some kind of fault on your dashboard. You carry tools with you. You always carried a toolbox, fuel filters, and a fuel filter wrench. And if you didn't have a wrench, you used your belt. And most of the time, you could get yourself out of any jam. Your headlight went out, you went to the truck stop, you got a headlight. You did it yourself. You didn't pull it in the shop. Marker lights, signal lights went out, you fixed them. You had a leak, usually you could fix those. Get a couple clamps. A lot of duct tape. You can get by till you got to your home terminal to get fixed. That's how it was. I don't know, drivers were more handy back then and less, I can't fix the headlight. My company says I can't touch it. Well, you're out of luck then. If you're going to sit and wait to get in a shop for 3 hours for a 5-minute repair. These drivers they were really tough in my dad's days. We got a little soft in my generation. I think when we all had air conditioners. I've driven over the road without air conditioning. It sucks. When I was driving for land transport, now mind you, I'm 18, 19 years old, over the road. Picked up a load in Evansville, Indiana. 5-stop TJ Maxx load going to Michigan. And then I was supposed to go back to Indiana and then to South Carolina. And my air conditioner broke in the cab over Mac. And it was like July. And I got sick. Really, really, really sick. Like I had pneumonia. I didn't know it at the time, but I got pneumonia. Sweating, no air conditioning. I get up to Michigan, I get my 5 stops off, all hand unload. Everything was hand unload on rollers. And I had to pick up another load. Picking up Dexter, Michigan. Oh, I can't think of it. It's baking goods. It's like this little powder, white and blue. I can't think of it. White and blue boxes. And I was really sick, and I ran into one of our land drivers, Blair Meserow, right? Blair was heading to Boston with a load. He was going to pick up a load of toys out of Walleye Lake, Michigan, going to Boston. I'm like, what's wrong with you? I said, I think I got pneumonia. I go, I'm sick. And he said, well, geez, man, why don't you take my load to Boston, and I'll take your load back to Evansville, which is where he was from anyways. And we switched trailers, and I drove back to Boston when normally I could do that from Michigan in 1 day. I think it took me 2.5 days to get back home. I was sick. I could drive for an hour or two and have to pass out in the bunk. And I was home, and I was home for about a week after that. And I was diagnosed with pneumonia. It sucks being sick on the road. And truck drivers are the most stubborn people in the universe when it comes to being sick on the road. They will push it and push it for a load, for the company, for a dispatcher, for a broker, to the point where some of them die because they're stubborn. And I know plenty of people who fit that bill, who will push it and push it and push it because they're stubborn. They'll push it for a broker or a load. And you got to take care of yourself. I've only been sick a few times on the road, but it's that time of year when you got to start taking care of yourself and taking vitamins and eating healthy and eating some vegetables. I know it's not popular. I don't like them either, but I eat them. Do some exercise. I had pneumonia twice on the road, food poisoning once, and shingles once. Shingles is terrible. I gotta get that. Yeah, I had shingles when I drove for Bud Meyer. My armpits. I couldn't put my arms down. It was like July or August. Didn't know what shingles was, never heard of it. And I had these giant like sacks of like liquid and pus under my armpits. I couldn't put them down. I'm trying to drive like this. Painful. I ended up driving to a hospital in Milwaukee with the 18-wheeler, I guess. I can't even remember. They're like, you got shingles. And then they gave me some, I want to say Zithromax. They gave me some kind of antibiotics, B12 shots. They told me to take B12 vitamins, drink a lot of orange juice. And they said it was caused by stress of not sleeping. I only got it once, but I didn't sleep for the next 20 years. And I was, stressed out from not sleeping a lot. But I only got it once, but they say it lies dormant in you. So maybe I get it again. Yeah. yourselves, drivers. That's all I'm trying to say. Just on the phone with my buddy Dave. He got me thinking. He was at a truck stop. They were jammed out into the road trying to get fuel. And he was telling me how lucky I am that I missed all this road life that's going on now. And I was just thinking about how it was back when my dad drove and when I drove over the road. We pulled into the fuel island. It was never really a wait. It was usually one truck at the pumps if all the pumps were full. Maybe one truck behind them. And then when the truck that was fueling was done, they would pull all the way ahead. Most of the time, it was always a few knuckleheads, you know. They would pull ahead just enough to give you enough from the fuel. And sometimes you had to get reefer fuel too, and then you'd have to wait for them to move, but you know, they'd only be there 5 minutes, 10 minutes at most, go inside, get their receipt. And he was just telling me how inconsiderate people are and how lucky I am that I don't have to deal with that much anymore. And I know I'm lucky. The other thing we were talking about is when you were looking for a parking spot at a truck stop, to me it was always enjoyable. It's kind of like my time to shine, backing into a tight spot. But you'd loop around at nighttime, and when you found your spot, you put your four-ways on, you cut the headlights off, and you backed in, usually in one shot. Now if you had a 53-foot trailer, what I would do is, if the load was up in the front and you had your wheels up, it makes it a little difficult to swing a 53 into a spot with the wheels up. So I would put the rear right at the threshold of the opening. I get out nice and cool, because it's cool on my stool. Pull the slider, get back in the truck, pull the trolley down, pull the wheels all the way to the back, right into the spot, one shot. You get in the spot. You gotta remember what hole you were in first of all. You always gotta count the hole. You're back in the spot as soon as you straighten out. You're even on both sides. You gotta be even. You gotta be straight. Your wheels gotta be straight. Back up as far as you can go. And then slide those wheels up. Lock them. That was it. It wasn't a big stressful thing that I guess is going on now. I mean, what do you think? How is it out there for you, the people that are still on the road doing it every day? Is parking and fueling really taking any fun out of the job? Because I just hear these horror stories where it's just continuous inconsideration for fellow drivers. It was supposed to be a brotherhood. And it's up to the older drivers to show these people the way. But I also have a sad sneaking suspicion that a lot of them don't even want to hear it, you know? Kind of like, you had your time, old timer. Let me have my time, but I don't know, man. It's hard to wanna. Somebody asked me, should they become a trucker, and I almost always tell them, yeah, but don't go over the road. And I hate to say that because I feel like I'm betraying my past, my heritage, because I loved it, you know? I hate to say that to somebody because maybe they're going to miss out. But I always tell them with a caveat, do it while you're young, you know, go out and see the country from behind the windshield. But I am looking forward to Thanksgiving weekend. Hopefully, that's the other thing, you know. Back in the day, Just dial the clock back before I hit gray hair. Back in the day, Thanksgiving and Christmas, I always spent on the road. And you got a free turkey dinner with all the fixings at the truck stop. Yeah, I've bet some new drivers don't even know that used to happen. Free dinner. I spent all the holidays on the road. I was single, and I did it so other drivers could be home with their families, which is ridiculous. Because if you want to be home with your family, you should be home with your family. It shouldn't even be a question. I know a lot of companies bend over backwards these days to get people home, but a lot of companies also treat drivers like a number and a warm seat, a warm body in the seat, and then can't believe they got such a high turnover rate. The drivers are always looking for a reason to switch companies, go where the grass is going to be greener, where they're going to be treated a little better. Sometimes it works, sometimes you find out it's just the same thing, different truck. I'm trying to think back the first time I was in a truck. I remember when I used to go to Brookfield Elementary School in Brockton, Massachusetts. My dad's company, Cape Cod Overland Express in Avon, they would do a school run like once a week. I don't know what they would deliver. It was food products, I'm assuming, but they would put 2 men in the truck. It was all hand unloading and a lot of stops, and it was 2 drivers. And every once in a while, my father would come to the school. My dad and a guy named Big Al. And my dad was like 6 feet tall. Big Al was probably 6'8". I don't know how he fit in a white 9000, but 2 of those guys that they come up in a. My dad calls them a jitterbug. It's a pup trailer. He always called them jitterbugs for some reason. I don't know if that's a real word. Sometimes he made up words. So, boy, I was the only one excited at school about it, but I always remembered walking to school and seeing the trucks there in the morning every once in a while. But I was 6 years old the first time I went in the truck with him. Cape Cod Overland. That's my dash cam going off. I hit a bump sometimes, it just takes a picture. Like I was in a crash, it captures it. We'd arrive at his work, probably like 6 a.m. All the trailers were backed inside the warehouse to the loading docks. He'd find his tractor for the day. Sometimes you didn't always drive the same tractor, but they had white 9000s and they had white compactors, white 3000s. They had a 1 or 2 Brockways, and a couple Macs, a U model. But for the most part, Dad always drove the white 9000s. Anytime I went with him, I never was in a white compactor. And even back then, it was cooler to have the hood than the cab over. I always remembered asking him every day when he'd come home from work, which truck did you drive? And if he said the 9000, I had more of a sense of pride than if he did that day he drove the compactor. We'd arrive at work, go and get your dispatch, find out what truck you're driving. Every time I went with him, like I said, it was a 9000. He'd get the Hood milk crate. Hood is a milk company in the Boston area. You have a milk crate. He put it on the floor. There was nothing here on the floor. It was all just the floor. Put the crate down on the floor, and that was my seat for the day. And then he'd fire up that air starter. Woo! And imagine 30 trucks all with air starters firing up in the morning. What a sound! And then they'd air start them up and pump the throttle, and they're all grass burners, but the smoke would just fill the air of this big cloud of pollution, and deliciousness of air would just hang over for a while, all morning, breathing it in, smell the diesel. And then he'd find his trailer, back under the trailer, hook it up, go on the loading dock, find his freight, load his own truck. That's what LTL guys do. I did that at R&L carriers too. We loaded our own trucks. Go find your freight, load your truck. And that way you can load it in the order that you want to load it in that makes sense to you. I always thought it was a good idea. And then whenever I went with my dad, in those days he always ran Rhode Island. Rhode Island was his area. And a lot of people would know him at the stops, and I was a cute little kid, believe it or not. And like, if you ever ran into, like, if we were at a grocery store delivering, the bread guy or the hostess guy would always give me some free snacks. Like, hey kid, here's some Hostess. And, hey kid, you like Twinkies? Yeah. Cool. Kid doesn't like Twinkies. And the end of the day, we stopped in Sharon, Massachusetts. On Main Street, there's a Shaw's supermarket. On the end of that building used to be a restaurant. We'd always stop there, get a coffee before we headed back into the yard. And other drivers there would meet up. They'll get coffee, and then everybody would run back in. By the time you get back to the yard, it was 6, 7 o'clock at night. It was a long day. You know, it was a 13, 14 hour day. You know, my father would come home usually 6, 7 o'clock at night, have dinner, watch TV, fall asleep in his chair, and be gone before I woke up for school the next morning. And I went with him as much as I could in those days. My brother never went until, I remember one day my dad pulled up in front of the house with the truck. He had never done that before. It was very exciting for me. Look out the window and there's a white 9000 with a 40-foot trailer outside. He had never brought a truck home at this point. It was probably 1979, 1980, so I'm 10. And I remember him coming in and telling my mother the business, they're closing down the business, and this is his last day. And I wanted to go with him so bad. It was summertime, so I was off from school, and my parents discussed how this is probably my brother's only chance to do this. So he took my brother, who I'm sure this moment escaped him completely, because he wasn't into trucks. I really wasn't into trucks then that much either. I didn't think. But my brother went on my dad's last day at Cape Cod. I'm still bummed out about it, to be honest. But I'm working on it. I'm going to see a therapist pretty soon. Now, if you didn't catch the interview with my dad about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, you should go check that out. It went pretty well. He had explained how the drivers had got on strike. It was during deregulation, where all the Teamster companies were going out of business, and the drivers at his company went on strike because they wanted more money. And the boss, the owner, had asked them, guys, I can't afford to give you any more money right now, please go back to work. And they didn't. They were insisting on getting more money, so the owner came back and said, well, I can't afford to do this anymore, and he closed the business down. And Dad spared at a bunch of companies: Consolidated Freightways, APA, Roadway, Yellow, APA, and a guy named Whitey, who drove for Cape Cod also. he ended up going to work for Provident Leases, and then got my dad a job there. Now, this is my first introduction to over-the-road trucking. And I remember, I'm 10, right? So, I'm in the sleeper truck for the first time, and just like in awe, this GMC Astro. Nothing to write home about on the outside. It was pretty raggedy on the outside. I mean, these were not pretty trucks. My dad's trucks were never really pretty on the outside, but they were always very clean on the inside. And then it was time to go on my first over-the-road trip. It was very controversial. My grandparents, my mother's parents, may they rest in peace, were very dead set against me going on a road trip with my father. They didn't really like my father that much because he was an Israeli, he was a foreigner, he was blue collar, no education. They wanted more for their daughter, my mother. And they were very influential in my mother's life. And they really thought by me going with my father, it would do me harm in my future. Like if I go on this trip, I might want to end up becoming a truck driver like my father, which would be really bad. That was the thinking. Oh, are they so right? Oh my God. They were like Nostradamus. First trip in the Astro. We loaded a load of Zayres department stores. Out of, at that time, Clinton, Massachusetts. Load of Zayres going to Ohio. Palmer Heights. Shoot, I'm having a blonde moment. All the places in Ohio we went, but all over the Cleveland area, Garfield Heights, over to Gary and Hammond, Indiana. Those were our last stops. Man, long day in that Astro. I loved it. When I went with my father in the truck, whenever I was tired, he'd like, go to bed, take a nap. I would never go to bed when he was driving. To me, it was a sign of weakness if I went to sleep. If he could stay up, I could stay up. And I would just sit there. I didn't have no Game Boy, cell phone. There was no television in the truck. We're just staring out the windshield, looking at all the trucks. This is my first introduction to sleeper trucks, really. I didn't know anything about sleeper trucks. I grew up around LTL freight trucks. Didn't know anything about dump trucks. That came way later. Go to Ohio. We're at the last stop in Gary, Indiana, right? My dad's backed up to the receiving door. It's not a loading dock, it's a receiving door. And they got rollers all the way through the truck. Me and my dad are dropping boxes onto the rollers. And I loved it. And then my dad was kind of a bully, still is, and I hope he sees this because I don't really care. But he'd fill up the roller, right? And then if they were going slow and not receiving the boxes fast enough, he'd push them until they started falling off the belt, and then they would start yelling, "Stop! Stop! Stop!" And he'd look at me and laugh, and I would laugh. And then later in my life, when I was delivering TJ Maxx, doing the same exact thing on rollers, I would do the same thing and laugh. Or at the last stop, and with this far from the receiving door, and my father's like, "Oh, the boxes are stuck. Go to the end of the roller and straighten them out." Well, I walked backwards, and I fell down off the truck and knocked the wind out of myself. I always remember that. I could have got really hurt on my first trip. It could have been my last. I think I was concussed. Like I hit my head. And then we came back to Boston. I can't even remember where we picked up. I think we picked up in Tiffin, Ohio, but I can't remember what. and I was hooked. That was an old Astro 8V92 two-stack visor, had a visor on it. Loved it. Badass truck. I think it had a 13-speed. And then they upgraded him to a Kenworth cab over. If I remember, I'll put some pictures in here. You guys have seen him before. I'm probably telling all the same stories. I only got so many stories. I can't make them up. I gotta be real. He got a white cab over Kenworth with green and blue stripes. They had two of them. I don't know what year the Kenworth was, but it was an older model. Probably in the 60s. I'm not up on the K100. I know K100, but I don't know the letters, you know. But this had the older steps on it. And man, I was proud of that truck. And I kept that thing clean. When Dad came home on the weekend, he usually got home Saturday morning and left Sunday. I'd spend all day cleaning the truck. Clean all the windows, make the bed, sweep the floor.
1-978-503-206.
Sweep the floors, clean the mirrors. Wasn't washing trucks at that point. Didn't wash trucks. Didn't wash trucks till my dad bought a truck, really. I don't think my dad ever... Later on, yeah, we'll talk about that later, but he had the white Kenworth. I love that truck. And he ran all over with that, east of the Mississippi. Mostly the mid-Atlantic states. Between Boston and Chicago, a little Virginia. Down south a little bit. Never got as far as Florida for Provident leases. And then they gave him a silver Kenworth. Beautiful silver K100 cab over. It was the first time I'd ever had, my dad ever started customizing a truck a little bit. For example, the wheels were rusted. He got some silver paint and he painted the rims. And the one stack on the back was rusted. He painted that with silver paint. And he replaced the driver's seat with an Eldorado seat. And that truck had the red leather. It's a beautiful truck. That was the best truck for me. That was like, that was it. And then they got this run where we get off the road and he was running to New Jersey every night. Brooklyn, New York, and New Jersey. And he get out of the cab over and he was on a white road bus. Same company. For the next 2 years, some weeks 5 nights a week, some nights 6 nights a week. Some nights he would do it on Sunday night too. Bobtail to Plymouth Rock, either in Stoneham, Mass, or Seekonk, Mass. Mostly Seekonk, like 99% of Seekonk. Bobtail from Brockton down there. It's about 30 miles. Grab a trailer, go to Brooklyn, New York, leave a loaded trailer, get another loaded trailer, either going back to Seekonk or then to Jersey City, which made the night a lot longer. You have to go through the Holland Tunnel. It was the whole thing. You know, you're adding minimum another 2 hours to your night. And then back to Seekonk. And then, you know, he'd leave the house about 6 o'clock at night. And he'd be back about 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. So it was, you know, every night. And on school breaks, I would go with him. Passenger side had a seat at that time. No air ride seats, no power steering, no frills, no stereo, no heated mirrors, no stereo, no nothing. And no air ride, anything. And man, did I feel alive on those trips to New York. First of all, everybody's running a CB radio. Everybody has a CB handle. Truckers, the LTL guys all had lights, so you would know who was driving what on their trucks, like different colored lights. And the boring part was running from between Providence and like New Haven. You get down to New Haven, there was a diner somewhere near the oil refineries under the bridge, like North Haven probably. And a lot of the Plymouth Rock guys would stop in there, get coffee, and would run together and then split off, you know, down in the Bronx area and go their separate ways. Some guys are going to Jersey City, some guys are going to Brooklyn. I remember one night, snowing out, must have been winter break, we had stopped at the Service Plaza, Branford, and there were 4 Plymouth Rock drivers, my dad being one of them. And people keep asking me, did your father work for Plymouth Rock? No, he worked for a contractor with Plymouth Rock. 3 of us took off, and the other guy was still behind. There was another guy. And I remember seeing the other guy running for his truck to catch up with us. But nobody knew it, except me. I was the only one that ever knew that guy was running to catch up with us. And we had just gone over the Q Bridge in New Haven. Somebody got on the radio and said a southbound truck just jackknifed on the bridge. Find out the next day it was the guy that went running to catch us, jackknifed on the bridge and got hurt really bad. And yeah, I always remember that. But so now I'm like, this is 85 to 87, so I'm 15 years old, 14 and a half, 15 years old. And when Dad would get to the terminal, any of the terminals, he'd go inside, get the paperwork, he'd say, Mike, unhook. Drop the landing gear, unhook the airlines, pull the pin, pull the truck out from under the trailer, pull up to the office. Nobody said anything back then. Nobody even blinked an eye. And in the morning when we get back, after we left Seekonk, it was 30 miles back, I would drive back. Now I'm 14 and a half, 15 years old, 10-speed Road Ranger, not any of this synchronized shifting where it's smooth. This is like you gotta like really work it to get into gear, and then click, 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 click through the gears. And I became a pretty proficient shifter. No clutch, double clutch, but I couldn't downshift to save my life in the beginning. And then we would switch seats at the Bridgewater Service Plaza on the northbound side of Route 24. And most of the time, as I pulled in, I tried to come out of 10th at the 9th, and just grind it. I didn't understand revving up the RPMs, and I would just like hobble it into the Service Plaza in neutral. My father would laugh, and then he'd take it the rest of the way, another 10 miles to the yard. And that was my introduction to driving. And then in 87, and that's my next interview, is because I don't know what made him decide that he wanted to buy a truck. Because I remember there were a lot of discussions. I remember him talking about going to work for Schneider National, and you could get a truck through them. I mean, that was a discussion. It never happened, but there was a discussion about that. I remember the days going to buy the truck, going to look at trucks, what those trucks were. We were looking at a beautiful long wheelbase R model Mack with a 1-stack. It was red. We looked at a white Road Boss, a long nose white Road Boss day cab, and then he spec'd out this Western Star. I'll have to ask him about all that later, but and then when he got that Western Star, that was like driving brand new top of the line truck for us, for him. He had never driven something so nice before, coming out of a cab over and a Road Boss. You know, maybe some of you guys find this interesting. I'm just trying to make content. But, you know, that first day, that Western Star was the pride of the family. It was an awesome truck. And I was 16 going on 17 when he got that truck. And those summer vacations, you know, by that time I was pretty good at shifting and learning how to drive, and he was letting me drive on the highway and don't tell your mother. And you know, I remember 15, 16 years old driving an I-40 from Virginia line on 81 down to Knoxville and right through Nashville. You know, and then Dad getting in the bunk going, hey, just keep it straight. I'm gonna take a nap. It's a lot of trust. It's a lot of trust. Think about it, you know? Not only with his truck, his life, other people's lives, all that freight. Was it stupid? Yeah, probably. Would I do that now? No, probably not. We'll see. I don't know. I've let my kids do some stupid stuff too, I guess, as a parent, but I don't want to talk about that right now. But yeah, I mean, I had my son plowing snow when he was 12, you know, in a don't tell the Cardillos. But anyways, yeah, you know, that's how you gotta learn. You know, I'm all for second generation truckers. I've always been pro 18-year-olds driving over the road, especially second generation, third generation truckers, kids who grew up on farms with trucks. That's a whole nother breed. And I think those kids should go out with a mentor for a month, let's say, you know, and put them to work. I speak from experience. I did it, you know, as you know, driving over the road, 18 years old, and I was fine, you know. I ended up here, I can't even remember. Can't find them, grind them. But it's been a good life. Trucking's been good to me and my family. I don't think I would change much. Thankful for my experiences. I wish I had more stories. I got a couple more, but I was all business. I was all about being on time. Yeah, I screwed around too, but there wasn't that much time for screwing around. Sometimes you had to find the time, and I did, but I was mostly all business. Didn't mess around with drugs. Didn't really drink. Didn't mess around with lot lizards. For the most part. No, not really. Knowingly. Oh man. Just trying to get through the week. Get that big rainstorm coming in tomorrow. Why do I feel like he's going to put me in the low bed tomorrow and move snow equipment? Wouldn't that be something?